weren't you on the British diving team?
I was on the British team for almost 10 years. It was a silly thing. I got into it really late to be, efficient in any kind of international sport.
For years, Jason Statham has been the face of unstoppable strength, the man who could leap from burning cars, fight off waves of enemies, and walk away without a scratch. From the Transporter to Fast and Furious, he built his name as Hollywood's ultimate action hero, fearless, disciplined, and seemingly untouchable. But behind the tough exterior and thrilling movie moments lies a story that's far more painful than fans realize. At 58, the truth about Jason Statham's life off camera is heartbreaking. The actor who once embodied power and control has been quietly facing battles that few have seen. From devastating personal losses to health scares and career doubts, Jason's journey has been marked by struggles that contrast sharply with his on-screen image. Those who know him best say that beneath the stoic confidence lies a man who has endured more than he ever lets the public see. Fame didn't come easy for Jason. Before Hollywood knew his name, he was living hand-to-mouth, trying to survive as a street vendor and struggling athlete. And even after success, the sacrifices didn't stop. Long hours on set, physically punishing roles, and near-fatal stunts pushed his body to its limits, leaving scars that would eventually catch up with him. Today, behind the calm smile and sharp suits, Jason Statham carries the weight of years of silent pain, loss, and reflection. The truth about where he stands now will leave fans speechless, because even the toughest men have moments when their strength begins to fade. Jason Statham's rise to stardom is the kind of story Hollywood loves to tell. A man who came from nothing, fought his way up and built a career on raw determination. But the truth behind that rise is far grittier than most people realize. Before he became the global action icon we know today, Jason lived a life of struggle, rejection, and quiet desperation. Born in Shirebrook, Derbyshire, England, Jason grew up in a modest household. His parents worked hard to make ends meet. His father was a street performer and occasional boxer, while his mother was a dancer. From an early age, Jason learned that nothing in life comes easy. He discovered his love for physical challenges early on, excelling in sports, particularly diving. For more than a decade, he trained tirelessly as a member of Britain's national diving team, even competing internationally. But despite all the years of dedication, his dream of reaching the Olympics never came true. It was one of his first major heartbreaks. After leaving competitive diving, Jason found himself at a crossroads. He had no degree, no financial stability, and no clear path forward. To survive, he sold fake designer perfumes and jewelry on London's streets, shouting offers to uninterested crowds. Those years of hustling taught him the art of confidence, a skill that would later become part of his movie persona. But at the time, it was pure survival. His big break came when he was discovered by British director Guy Ritchie. Ritchie saw something authentic in him, a street-smart toughness that couldn't be faked. He cast Jason in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, 1998, and suddenly the man who once lived hand-to-mouth became the face of British crime cinema. The movie's success changed everything. Hollywood soon came calling, and Jason transitioned from a small-time hustler to a full-fledged action star. But even as success rolled in, Jason couldn't escape the emotional weight of his past. He had spent years hiding pain behind a stoic face, the kind of pain that comes from feeling overlooked and unwanted. Fame brought money, luxury, and recognition, but it didn't erase the loneliness or the memories of the life he once lived. When The Transporter hit theaters in 2002, Jason was finally cemented as Hollywood's next big action hero. His dedication was unmatched. He performed most of his own stunts, trained rigorously, and demanded realism in every fight scene. Yet, what audiences didn't see was the toll that commitment took on him. Years of intense physical training, injuries, and high-risk scenes left him battered. He rarely complained, but behind closed doors, Jason often dealt with pain that never fully healed. There was also the emotional cost of maintaining the image Hollywood demanded. He was expected to be tough, unbreakable, and silent, the embodiment of masculinity. But those close to him have said that Jason, in private, is a deeply introspective and even vulnerable man. He has always been careful with fame, keeping his personal life guarded and rarely showing the struggles behind the scenes. Even in love, Jason's path wasn't without difficulty. Before meeting model and actress Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, he experienced several relationships that ended quietly, leaving him questioning whether his career had cost him genuine happiness. When he and Rosie eventually found each other, fans thought it was a fairy tale match. Yet, like any long-term relationship under the public eye, theirs faced immense pressure, balancing fame, family, and private life in a world that never stops watching. Jason's early years taught him how to survive. But as time went on, the survival instinct that once saved him began to isolate him. He built emotional walls to protect himself from the world, walls that even now remain hard to break. Behind the fierce, confident image lies a man shaped by hardship, loss, and the constant fight to prove he belongs. As Jason Statham's fame skyrocketed through the 2000s and 2010s, his life became a non-stop whirlwind of success, blockbuster after blockbuster, fight scene after fight scene, all fueled by his relentless dedication. But behind the cameras, the price of that success was beginning to show. The same fearlessness that made him famous was also pushing his body and mind to their breaking point. Unlike many action stars who relied heavily on stunt doubles, Jason insisted on doing most of his own stunts. From car chases to high falls, from brutal combat scenes to underwater sequences, he wanted every frame to look real. Directors admired his authenticity, but what fans didn't know was the amount of pain he carried after every project. Over the years, the injuries piled up. Torn ligaments, cracked ribs, dislocated shoulders, and chronic back pain became part of his daily life. Still, Jason rarely complained. In interviews, he brushed off questions about pain, often saying, "It's all part of the job." But those close to him knew the truth. His body was breaking down. One of the scariest moments in Jason's career came while filming The Expendables 3 in 2014. During a stunt gone wrong, a truck he was driving lost its brakes and plunged into the sea. Most people would have panicked, but Jason, a former professional diver, managed to swim to safety. Though he survived, the near-death experience changed him forever. Afterward, he became more reflective, more aware of how fragile life could be. Privately, friends said he began to question how long he could keep living life on the edge. In addition to physical strain, the emotional weight of fame began to wear on him. Despite his global popularity, Jason has always been deeply private, avoiding interviews, social media, and Hollywood events whenever possible. Fame to him was never about attention. It was a means of survival and self-expression. But as his fame grew, privacy became a luxury he could no longer afford. He was followed everywhere, his relationships scrutinized, his every move analyzed. The man who once valued solitude found himself trapped in a world where silence was impossible. Even as his career continued to soar with films like Crank, Safe, and The Mechanic, Jason began to withdraw emotionally. He became known for his controlled demeanor, rarely smiling in public, rarely opening up about his inner struggles. But those who worked with him noticed something deeper. The exhaustion of a man who had spent decades proving his toughness to a world that demanded perfection. His relationship with Rosie Huntington-Whiteley became one of the few constants in his life. The two built a family together, welcoming their first child in 2017 and their second in 2022. Fatherhood softened Jason in ways that surprised even his closest friends. He spoke with pride about his children, calling them his greatest motivation. Yet, behind the joy of family life, there was also a quiet fear. A fear that his physically demanding career might prevent him from being there for them in the long run. Those close to Jason say that fatherhood brought new perspective but also deep regret. He realized how much time he had lost chasing success and surviving through work. Years of constant filming had kept him away from home, missing birthdays, milestones, and quiet moments of connection. For a man who had fought his entire life to create stability, the irony wasn't lost on him. He had built everything he dreamed of, but it had come at the cost of peace. Even now, when Jason looks back at his journey, he sees both triumph and tragedy. He's proud of what he's achieved, but he also carries the burden of everything he sacrificed to get there. The action hero the world adores is, in reality, a man quietly coping with the physical pain, emotional exhaustion, and loneliness that often come with greatness. As Jason Statham entered his late 50s, fans began to notice subtle changes: fewer movie appearances, longer breaks between projects, and a more subdued public presence. The man who once seemed indestructible was now facing the very thing he had spent his entire career defying: time. The years of pushing his body to the limit had finally caught up to him, and his once iron physique was no longer as unshakable as it seemed on screen. Insiders have described how Jason's physical recovery after filming began taking much longer than before. Every jump, every fight, every impact left him sore for days. He wasn't just acting in pain anymore. He was living with it. His body had become a map of old injuries, each scar a reminder of the sacrifices he made for his craft. And while he still appeared strong in public, privately, there were moments when the exhaustion was overwhelming. Jason's dedication to authenticity in action scenes often came at great personal cost. For years, he turned down opportunities to rely on special effects or body doubles because he believed audiences could tell the difference. But now, as his body ages, he has had to face the painful truth that he can't do it all anymore. To a man who built his career on toughness and realism, accepting his limits wasn't easy. In interviews, Jason has occasionally hinted at this internal struggle. He's spoken about listening to the body, about knowing when to slow down, comments that carry far more weight than they once did. Behind his calm demeanor lies a man trying to accept that even the strongest among us must eventually let go of the roles that made us. And then came the emotional battles. Fame, though rewarding, had taken its toll on his mental health. Jason has never been the type to open up about personal pain. But those who know him say that he carries deep scars from years of constant pressure and expectation. Being the tough guy of Hollywood meant he was rarely allowed to show vulnerability. Every time he felt broken, he simply worked harder, suppressing the pain that would eventually manifest in quieter, darker moments. He has also struggled with loss. Friends and mentors he once worked with are no longer around, and as time has gone on, Jason has become more reflective about mortality. Those close to him say he spends more time with family now, more time alone, and less time chasing fame. He has learned that money and success cannot fill the silence of a home. When the cameras stop rolling, what's perhaps most heartbreaking is how Jason's silence has often been mistaken for arrogance or coldness. In reality, he's a man deeply uncomfortable with emotional exposure. Years of rejection before fame taught him to build walls, and fame itself only made those walls thicker. Yet beneath that guarded surface is a man who feels deeply, who worries about his aging parents, who fears disappointing his children, and who questions whether his legacy will be remembered for more than just explosions and fight scenes. In recent years, Jason has turned down several major roles, choosing instead to focus on smaller projects and time with family. While fans may see that as a slowdown, those close to him view it as survival. His priority now is not to be the biggest star, but to be present, to heal, and to find peace after a lifetime of chaos. Jason Statham's life has been defined by strength, but in these later years he's discovering a new kind of courage. The courage to admit that even heroes need rest. And though the world still sees him as an unbreakable force, those who truly know him understand that his greatest battles have always been the ones fought in silence. Today, at 58, Jason Statham remains one of Hollywood's most respected action stars, but his life now carries a quiet, bittersweet tone. The man who once defined toughness has grown more introspective, more aware of how fragile life truly is. Behind the fame, wealth, and legacy of an international icon lies a man who has endured a lifetime of battles, both visible and unseen. Physically, the years of punishing stunts and grueling schedules have taken their toll. He no longer trains with the same intensity he once did, and chronic pain has become a part of his daily reality. Close friends say that even simple movements sometimes remind him of old injuries, reminders of all the times he pushed his body beyond its limits to give audiences something real. It's the price he continues to pay for authenticity, even decades later. But what truly defines Jason's tragedy isn't just physical, it's emotional. He's spoken about how fame can isolate a person, how success can create distance between who you are and who people think you should be. The same stoic image that made him famous often hides a deep sense of solitude. Despite being surrounded by admiration, Jason has often felt misunderstood. To the public, he's the unbreakable hero. But to those close to him, he's a man who has quietly wrestled with self-doubt and loss. Family has become his sanctuary. Rosie Huntington-Whiteley and their children have given him a sense of grounding that fame never could. He's traded red carpets for quiet evenings at home, training sessions for family dinners, and global premieres for school runs. For a man who spent years chasing adrenaline, these simple moments have become his peace. Yet even as he embraces this quieter chapter, there's a shadow that lingers, the fear of fading away, of being forgotten by an industry that moves faster than ever. Jason has also become increasingly selective about his work. He only takes roles that mean something to him personally, often turning down lucrative offers for the sake of balance and peace. In recent interviews, he's admitted that his priorities have changed, that he no longer needs to prove anything. But the quiet sadness in his tone reveals that stepping away from the spotlight hasn't been easy. Acting and performing stunts weren't just a career for him. They were his identity, his escape, his lifeline. Letting go of that is a kind of grief few understand. Still, Jason Statham has never been one to seek sympathy. He accepts the consequences of his choices with the same resilience that carried him from the streets of London to global superstardom. His story is one of grit and survival, a reminder that even the strongest people carry invisible wounds. The tragedy of Jason Statham isn't that he's fallen, but that the very strength that built his success has also isolated him from the world. In his rare public appearances now, he speaks softly, smiles politely, and avoids the spotlight that once defined him. He carries himself like a man at peace. But behind that calm lies the reflection of a lifetime spent fighting battles few have seen. He's grateful for the career, the family, and the fans who've stood by him. But he also carries the weight of years lost to pain, performance, and pressure. At 58, Jason Statham's story is both triumphant and tragic. He's still standing but no longer running. Still strong but finally learning to rest. The action hero who once seemed invincible now walks a slower, quieter path, one filled with gratitude, reflection, and the painful beauty of a life fully lived. Because in the end, Jason Statham's greatest strength was never his fists or his fearlessness. It was his heart. And though time may have slowed his body, his spirit continues to fight, not for fame, but for peace.